welcome everybody. Thank you for coming for our training for immigration and volunteers. I'm Debbie Longenbacher and chair of the Social Action Committee at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation. So thank you all very much for coming today. Now, all of us have seen in the news the horrible things happening with immigrants across the country. Everybody wants to do something to help. Everybody has a different level of what they can do, different comfort level in terms of time that they have available, skill set, and so forth. So everybody wants to help out. And our training today is with the purpose of helping you to find something that fits for you, where you can help our local immigrants here in Fullerton. So next slide. Okay, well, I'll just start talking about it anyways. A couple months back, we had a training on immigration and looking at different resources that were available to folks in Fullerton. And the purpose of that presentation was so that people could find out what's available, but also for people who are directly affected, who are sheltering in place because they're afraid of leaving due to ICE. So that other people could learn about what resources there were. So if they needed help for their legal issues, that they would know where they could go. If they needed help with services in their home, they would know where to go. So this was our first information meeting, and we called it Amando a nuestros vecinos inmigrantes. And this is part 2 of that. For the folks who came, who are interested in what you can do to volunteer to help, that's what our training is for today. And I want to thank our 2 congregations, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Fullerton and the First Christian Church in Fullerton for helping to sponsor both of these events. So next slide. Okay. And then if you missed our first training and would like to know more about it, it was written up in the Fullerton Observer last month, and I have a few copies here if you'd like to take it to read about it. You can also go on our UU Fullerton YouTube site and watch a recording of the full training. So if you missed it and you would like more information, those are ways that you can get caught up, so to speak. So next slide. Okay, so we have 2 groups that presented at our event in February, and they're going to tell you about the kinds of volunteer opportunities there are, what you can do in the community to help. So I'd like to welcome Bethany Anderson, who's the Executive Director of Camino Immigration Services.
Hello. Maybe, is this working? No. How about, is this working? There we go. Okay, perfect. Hi, it's great to be with you again. My name is Bethany, and I'm the Executive Director. I'm going to come up here so I don't feel like I'm standing behind a giant table. And I'm the Executive Director of Camino Immigration Services. Camino is actually a sister organization to another organization called Solidarity, and I'm going to mention Solidarity as well because we have opportunities kind of under both umbrellas that may be of interest to some of you here. So I'll share a little bit about what Camino does. We can go to the next slide. So our mission, we stand in solidarity with immigrant communities by providing expert legal services, accessible community education, and bold advocacy that challenges unjust systems and expands opportunity and protection for all. You can go to the next slide. The services that we provide through Camino, we provide affirmative legal representation. So we do family petitions, adjustments of status, visas for victims of crime or domestic violence. We do provisional waivers, which is a thing that a lot of undocumented immigrants need in order to seek legal status. And we do DACA renewals. So basically any kind of affirmative legal process that that immigrants may be eligible for, those are the services that we provide. You can go to the next slide. We also are in the process of transitioning into doing removal defense. So in immigration, there's affirmative, which means someone kind of on their own comes forward and says, hey, I think I might be eligible for this benefit, and so I'd like to be screened for it and apply for it. And then removal defense is someone that has gotten swept up into the immigration system, whether it be through an ICE raid or through a denial of an application for an affirmative benefit, and then put in removal proceedings in immigration court to be deported from the United States. And that requires removal defense. And so that's not something typically that we've done, but because of the rising need for that, we have invested a lot of money in trying to bring on an attorney to focus on removal defense. So we're in the process of that and beginning to do pieces of that. So I'm gonna do, this is some of the information that I shared a couple months ago when I was here, but just as a kind of recap where we're at. What we're seeing on the ground in immigrant communities, I think something that a lot of, what we see in the news is a lot of the roaming raids and the, ICE in the airports and in our communities, the Home Depots, and recently the last couple of months it's been a lot more under the radar and more targeted arrests. So it's not like they're just grabbing anybody, although some of that is happening, very minimally, but it's very targeted, going after folks that have been ordered removed by a judge. And the problem with that is really what we're seeing. There's a lot of problems with everything going on, but one of the things that I think a lot of people aren't seeing, because it's not so visible in the media, is that really what this administration is doing is dismantling our legal immigration system. So funneling people that don't have criminal records, that otherwise would be eligible for benefits, but before they're able to access that, cutting it off and putting them in removal proceedings. And then we have a whole immigration administrative court system that is not following the law and is not granting relief or asylum. And so getting people ordered removed very quickly and then handing their files over to ICE, and then ICE going to their homes and arresting them. So it's a lot more kind of behind the scenes, under the radar. But the dismantling of our legal immigration system is really funneling a lot of people into increased vulnerability of being detained and deported. The second point up there kind of goes along with that, really targeting immigrants with pending legal status. So those that maybe have some kind of temporary protective status, those that are seeking asylum, even if they're eligible for asylum, they're not being granted asylum. They're being ordered removed, maybe not to their country of origin, but to a third country, which creates a whole mess of issues for folks. Cutting off people that before they're able to apply or access a green card, even if they're eligible for it, but detaining them and putting them in removal proceedings before they're able to be approved for that. There's a lot of kind of really heinous things happening behind the scenes. We are still seeing, of course my daughter's calling me. And I silenced my phone, but it vibrates on I should have answered it, but no. We are still seeing some street raids and roaming enforcement, but it's like little blips. We've seen it there was a couple weeks ago in San Juan Capistrano, there was a day of raids that were very random. And we've seen little bits and pieces of that here in Anaheim, but like I said, mostly since January, it's been targeted. Seeing ICE officers go into a community, try to make an arrest of who they're looking for, although they will arrest anybody that they also think may be undocumented in the area as well. And so we're still seeing, I think a lot of the focus, and rightfully so, has been shifted to detention centers because we know for a fact that the conditions in the detention centers is extremely inhumane, and we have a large increase of children being detained, and that obviously has, there's a lot of issues for that. And at the same time, right here in Fullerton, there's a news article that was just published a couple weeks ago due to all of the kind of budget cuts and restructuring of our Department of Homeland Security. We've always had an unaccompanied minors shelter here in Fullerton for youth, immigrant youth that are unaccompanied, and that's for long-standing program here, a really well-run facility and care for the kids very well, and that funding was cut off, and those kids now are being rerouted to detention centers like Dilley, where they're treated like prisoners, as opposed to kids in foster care. There's a very big difference about how the treatment at a shelter facility like the one we had here in Fullerton versus at a detention center. And so just, increase inhumane treatment across the board, people of all ages that are swept up into this madness. So it is a very difficult time. It continues to be difficult, even though we're not seeing it as much in the media like maybe we have last summer or at the beginning of the year with all of the focus on Minnesota. But it is still happening, and there is still a lot of issues, but it's just happening a little bit more behind the scenes. It's not as visible. So I appreciate having this event that we can just keep our eyes, and there's a lot to be concerned about. There's a lot of heavy things going on in the world. So I appreciate, cutting out a little space to just continue to keep eyes on what is happening with our immigrant neighbors. Okay, next slide. Some of the things that we are doing and how we're organizing here specifically in the city. And I will say it feels very overwhelming. It feels, even though, this is work that I've been doing for over 2 decades, so I still get very overwhelmed and not sure what should I do, what can I do, am I doing enough, and, and so I really understand and resonate with that. But what I want to encourage you with as I talk about some of these things that we are doing here is that we're really focusing on Fullerton and North Orange County, but this is happening all over the country. And that's really it's really, really encouraging, because if we can just take care of our community here and trust that other communities are taking care of theirs, and they are. And so we can really kind of be hyper-focused and hyper-local on our efforts, because there are just so many people around the country that are doing this work hyper-locally as well. And I'll give you a quick example. I have a client, longtime client, used to be detained here in California, got out of detention several years ago and relocated to the Philadelphia area. He got asylum years ago, became a green card holder, and then a U.S. citizen, and was petitioning his wife. And they got called in for an interview for that family petition, which is a little bit rare and a little bit, it's risky. I won't go into why, but it was a little bit scary that she got called into to the USCIS office there in Philadelphia. I don't practice in Philadelphia. I have no idea what's going on there. I have no idea if ICE is there. I don't know. So a couple days before the interview, or before we realized that they had the interview, I was cold calling organizations in Philadelphia. What are you guys doing accompaniment? Are you doing representation? And I got connected with an organization, a local organization there, and within a couple of hours, they had volunteers ready to go with my clients to their interview. And it was just this reminder of hey, we're all in this together, and I have no clue what's going on in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia, those people have no clue what's going on here in Fullerton, but we knew that we needed each other, and they rose to the occasion to help and support. And it was such an encouragement to me. I am not alone. We are not alone. And if we can take care of our community, other people are taking care of their community, and so we can really be encouraged and inspired by that. So here are some of the things that we're doing here hyper-locally. We do have a really robust rapid response network of ICE watchers and legal observers that are responding to ICE activity in our area. And so that's very important, because not only in some situations do those volunteers stop ICE detentions, But also, if you're not able to prevent it, you're able to provide support to the family members that are left behind or coworkers that have witnessed it. It's very traumatic. I was doing rapid response back in October and responded to an ICE action, but after the fact, and so met with some of the family members, and then on my way back, I stopped at a car wash that had been raided several times just because I knew that, hey, this other action happened right down the street. Let me just warn this car wash, the guys at the car wash. And so, I got there, warned them. They moved some of the guys that maybe would be a little bit more vulnerable inside. And after about 5 minutes of chit-chatting, I turned around and walked back to my car, and about 30 or 40 agents were surrounding the car wash. And so just by doing that rapid response work, we were able to prevent anybody there were 2 people that were tackled to the ground. One was detained, but he was a U.S. citizen, so he was later released. Yeah, I know. It was insanity, but by being, just by happenstance, because I was, doing rapid response and I was able to get to that car wash before ICE was able to, we were able to stop anybody from being permanently detained. So it was extremely violent, extremely traumatic for everybody there, but the work is really important and really valuable in both scenarios. When I responded to the first call and I had missed them, but I was able to give some resources and some support to the family, and then able to prevent actually someone from being permanently detained. What we are doing also is providing aftercare for families of those detained. So it's very overwhelming for these family members, spouses or children of someone who's been detained. It's really hard to get in communication with the person that's detained. It's really hard to understand what the process is going to look like or what to expect. And so a lot of what I do and what we do in my office through Camino is I'll do consultations where I'll sit with the family member of the person detained, kind of get the facts of the case, give them kind of a lay of the land of what to expect in the first 48 hours, the first 72 hours, the first week, the first month, and try to figure out what the best case of action is for that individual. And it is very individual. There's not one solution. Every situation is different. For some folks, there is no relief available to them. And their best choice potentially for them is to leave and to sign voluntary departure and to get out of detention, because detention is a terrible, terrible place to be. And for other people, it makes sense to stay and to fight because they do have some kind of hope of getting some kind of relief. But it's a very individual and it's a very personal decision that every family needs to make for themselves. And so our staff just kind of sits with them and guides them and gives them the pros and the cons and the risks of the different options, and kind of just supports them to make the best decision for their family. We do legal consults for those that are facing removal. So for someone that's in removal proceedings but not detained, we'll kind of meet with them and do a similar thing to kind of help them understand, because we're not fully able to represent everybody in their removal proceedings at this time. What we are offering is kind of just giving someone a free pre-consult before they pay a private attorney thousands of dollars to kind of help them understand, is that an investment that is worth it, or is it better to use those funds to relocate to a different location that may be safer? And so, kind of helping to support people in that process as well. We do representation and accompaniment for ICE check-ins and for interviews, because those all take place at a federal building where ICE is typically always present, and there's always a risk of being detained when you step foot in front of one of those federal buildings. And so we organize either legal representation or community accompaniment so that folks are not facing that alone. And then the last thing here, we do have a removal defense fund. So if we ourselves as an agency are not able to take the case, we have funds to be able to try to place the case with trusted private attorneys and help to limit the fee for the client by covering some of those legal fees for folks. So, and that fund remains open and is something that people can continue to donate to. Okay, next slide. Okay, so let's talk about what are some of the volunteer opportunities. There's a lot of things. Debbie and I met a couple months ago to kind of talk through what are some of the opportunities. So I'm just going to share all of them, and then I have a QR code over here on a little flyer that you can fill out and just check off what might be of interest to you, and then the appropriate person will follow up with you on what on those different opportunities. So in our office, in our legal office for Camino, we do have opportunities for folks that if you like to do administrative tasks, you like to organize files, fill out forms, shred documents, those kind of more office admin tasks, there are opportunities to come to our office a couple hours, 1 hour, 2 hours a week, and to help support in that way. If you are bilingual, there's opportunities to help with translations, helping our clients write their declarations, things, different kind of just office work in our legal service office. We do also do Know Your Rights workshops in the community, sometimes in partnership with Fullerton School District or with other community organizations. Those are more sporadic, maybe once every couple of months, but if that feels like that's within your capacity and you'd like to support at those events, help with childcare, help with snacks, help with sign-ins, all of those kind of things, and be there to collect intake forms or just kind of the more support for those events, that's a great opportunity to get involved as well. Now, through Solidarity, I've been focusing on Camino, but Solidarity, we run 2 community centers here in the city, and in those community centers, we have several different programs, and we are always looking for volunteers. Those community centers serve immigrant communities here in Fullerton. So all of our clients, all of the folks that come to those community centers are immigrants or children of immigrants. And so it's really frontline, emotional, educational, spiritual support to the immigrant community. You don't have to speak Spanish to be involved in that. Kids are bilingual for the most part. We do have a really, really beautiful program for the women in our community, and those are primarily Spanish speaking, but there's always opportunities to get involved there as well. They do a lot of art projects, there's group therapy that happens, different gatherings every day of the week. And so if that feels of more interest to you, we have after-school programs for elementary through high school students, and those are 4 days a week, so that's something that you can come and assist with homework. I will say the teens are a little wild, so you have to be really cut out and really like teens. For me, I'm not a teenage person. The lack of frontal lobe development is a little rough for me. I'll say teenage boys because I see my little sobrina here what? I'm a teenager, you love me. And that is true. But yes, so, but after school program, helping with homework, reading to the kids or with the kids, those are all opportunities. And then getting also involved with our women's groups is an opportunity as well. We are also rolling out, we've been doing food distribution through our 2 community centers, but we're actually in the process of building in one of our community centers a client choice market so folks can come and actually shop and get the food that they need and that works for their family. And so we're gonna need a lot of support and volunteers to roll that program out and to help with food distribution. And that'll be once or twice a week, a minimal commitment, but a good opportunity to just kind of really be in the community, build relationships, and help to meet a very basic but really high need right now, which is just food insecurity. So we're really trying to address that directly. Okay, next slide. Okay, and this is going to be more, I'm not going to say radical, but these are some of the more robust opportunities here. So we do have a whole mutual aid network here in Fullerton, and so these are more along the lines of that. So we do need volunteers occasionally to give rides or accompaniment to folks that have to. Maybe they have to go to the police station to get a police report, which is a necessary thing that they need in order to apply for the visa that they're eligible for. If they're a victim of a crime, they need the police report of the crime that they were a victim of. And right now, it feels very intimidating and overwhelming for some folks in our community to do that. And so we would love to be able to continue to offer volunteers that would give them a ride and just kind of be with them, just accompany them in whatever that may be. Sometimes we do organize accompaniment for people when they have ICE check-ins or when they're going to court or when they're going for different interviews at at a federal building. We are always taking volunteers for ice washing or for rapid response. That requires a more robust separate training, but that's one of the options. If you're interested in learning about that, we have trainings throughout the county somewhat regularly. You don't have to go to a Fullerton training to be on our Fullerton team. You can go to another one that may be offered on Zoom or in another county as long as it's through the Orange County Rapid Response Network, and then you can get plugged into our North Orange County team here to do rapid response ice watching work. Through our mutual aid network, we also do direct family support. So groceries, some holiday shopping, Christmas gifts for kids, back to school shopping. Those are kind of some financial gaps that families have. And so our mutual aid network tries to fill those gaps for as many families as possible. So that could be, going shopping for a family and grabbing them the groceries on their list, or getting a couple things for their kids for back to school, or Christmas presents, Thanksgiving dinner, things like that. So there's opportunities to get plugged into family support as well. And then this last one is really like specialized. Some skills that we really need are therapists and attorneys. You don't have to be an immigration attorney to help. We can actually train you to do removal defense, to do bond hearings if you have a law license. So if you know anybody that would be interested, we can provide the training and get you plugged in that way. And then really what we're seeing, I've worked in our communities, the two neighborhoods where our community centers are, for over 20 years. And we've done a lot of work, our team has done a lot of work to combat some of the mental health issues that exist in communities that suffer from poverty and being over-policed, and immigrant communities. We've been able to see an increase in high school graduation, college attendance, a decrease in teen pregnancy and violence at home. And I am truly terrified that this season in our country is gonna undo a lot of the really beautiful work that we've been able to do in our communities alongside our neighbors, because the mental health toll on our young people, but also on our parents in our communities, in pretty much all immigrant communities, is so astronomical. And we know, studies show us, history shows us that when communities are being attacked and experiencing trauma, then unhealthy things happen as a result if there is not intervention. And so mental health and being able to provide mental health resources to our communities is so critical right now. We have in our after-school program, we have just a couple weeks ago, we had a little second grader come in and just sit down and say, I'm just really scared that ICE is going to take my parents. A second grader. And she's thinking about it. It's the first thing that she says as she comes into our community center and plops down on the couch, Thank God we have the community center. It's a safe place for her to share those feelings. But as one of our staff members, tried to, what are you hearing about that? And kind of ask those questions and give her some support. She said, I hug my parents twice every morning just in case they're not there when I get home from school. No second grader. I do not care what your political affiliation is, pro-immigrant, anti-immigrant. No second grader should be carrying that mental load, period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But they are. And if we do not provide mental health resources and intervention, that second grader is going to turn into a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old that is likely going to engage in unhealthy, risky behaviors to cope with the amounts of trauma that are wiring her brain at such a young age to be distrusting, to be scared, to self-medicate. And so we have group therapy that happens in our community centers, but we really are seeing an increase in asks for individual therapy. Some of the families cannot afford it. Some of the families don't have the proper insurance to pay for it. And so we really are looking for volunteer partners to provide those mental health resources, either in a group setting or individualized therapy. So if that's you or you know anybody that has that skill set, we would love to be connected to share more about what those opportunities could look like. Next slide. That's it. So this is our website and our Instagram handle. Follow us, and you can get more information about Camino specifically on our website. And then if there's anything that's of interest to you, feel free to fill out that form that you can scan in our volunteer coordinator, which happens to be my husband. we'll be in touch with you within the next week or so to get you plugged in to whatever may be of your interest. So thank you so much for being here. Again, thank you for keeping your eyes on the immigrant community. It's really, really important that as the news cycle kind of moves on, that we remember that there are still so many people here in our neighborhoods and our communities that are suffering. And I say this every time, so if you've ever heard me speak, you've heard me say this, but you know, we can get so consumed with the worst of humanity, but it's our opportunity to be the best of humanity. And these are some of the ways that you can do that so locally and so impactfully. So thank you for even considering. I'm super grateful for this, these communities and this partnership with both of these congregations. So thank you, and I'll hand